Hi everyone, I'm Brooke Kavanaugh, and today I'm going to be teaching you a little bit more about French culture. So please listen up, because at the end of this video, I'm going to have you take a short survey about how I did to gather information for my personal project report. Thank you! So a little overview of what's going to be in this video. First, I'm going to teach you all about the traditional French dance of the can-can. Then, I'm going to explain why a negative stereotype of the French culture is wrong, using that traditional dance as an example. Finally, I'm going to explain why that stereotype is even attached to the French culture. And thank you in advance for being quiet and paying attention. The can-can started in the early 19th century in France. This was at the beginning of the Napoleonic era, where dozens of invasions happened and France was almost always at war. The dance started as a bit of a political commentary. The various moves of the dance correspond with parts of battle. For example, the chase part of the dance is like the charge in a fight. You've all analyzed political cartoons for history class. Well, the can-can was essentially a political cartoon in the form of a dance. The can-can was immensely popular in the 1890s. It was performed at almost every dance hall in Paris. The most famous, perhaps, was the Moulin Rouge. The Moulin Rouge is referenced in the song Lady Marmalade, and it inspired the 1952 and 2001 movies, both titled Moulin Rouge. The Moulin Rouge was known for being inappropriate and famous for the way they performed the can-can. The headliner for the club was Louise Weber, aka La Galoux, or the Glutton in English. She could kick hats off of men's heads, she was so good. This reputation made her image that of a strong, independent woman. And since this time was about 20 years after Susan B. Anthony published The Revolution, La Galoux became the feminist icon of France, making the can-can the feminist dance of France. At a time when it was inappropriate for women to show their ankles, women showing their underwear during the can-can became a power move. For the French, La Galoux started a revolution with the can-can. Obviously, with the nature of the can-can, there was pushback. The can-can was scandalous. Nobody could deny that. The picture on the right is the poster that made La Galoux and the Moulin Rouge famous. And it's just a dirty joke. The way the woman's legs are spread and the way that the man's hands are pointing to the genitals of the man and the woman, the poster was a scandalous, dirty joke. To quote the CBS News article I read, it was seen as outlandish, as a slap in the face to the moral bourgeois order. The bourgeois was the upper class of France at the time, and everything about the can-can repulsed them. The can-can was heavily rejected by the bourgeois. Places where the can-can was danced would sometimes be raided by the police. The height of the can-can's popularity was also the height of its rejection. Although it may seem unspectacular, the can-can was accepted by everyone simply over time. As time went on and women's rights grew, the can-can became less scandalous and more of a symbol of France and French culture. Everything that once made the can-can scandalous eventually became a reminder of the French spirit and culture. Today, the can-can is a respected French dance and tradition. There are still places that perform the can-can almost every night and hold workshops to teach the dance. The can-can is loved and celebrated by the French people. This dance has become a symbol of France as familiar as the Eiffel Tower. It's loud, it's intense, and it's most definitely French. Let's face it, the French are rude. Now let's compare that rude stereotype to the can-can, a dance that, as I explained earlier, is a great representation of French culture. Being rude is a put-down, and the can-can is no bucket tipper. The can-can helped inspire a revolution in France that led to equality for men and women. The can-can helped French women gain confidence and independence. That wasn't rude. Rudeness is also often associated with tradition or seriousness. Again, this doesn't fit the can-can. The can-can at its core is a joke. The can-can started as a joke about how much Napoleon wanted to fight, and over time it became a dirty joke. The can-can is about as far from traditional or serious as you can get. The can-can, the dance that represents French culture to a T, is the opposite of rude. It's no secret that the French are often seen as rude. But why is that? Well, the French tend to focus on the negatives. They will list everything that is wrong before they even think about praising what is right. History and the media don't help the French cause either. When speaking with my family friend who is from France, he told me that he finds a lot of people hold a grudge against the French because of the world wars. Of course, that is just his personal experience, but I don't doubt that there really is a grudge. And finally, the media. In movies, how are the French typically portrayed? As rude. In movies and shows, oftentimes French characters are obsessed with beauty and aesthetic and look down on anyone who doesn't agree. So, with the focus on the negative, history of the world wars, and media representation, Americans often think of the French as rude. I think it's time for a reality check. Let's start with the most simple, the media. We all know how inaccurate media representation is. The media thrives off of hurtful stereotypes, such as the French being rude, and we shouldn't trust media representation. Next, the World War grudge. The world wars are in the past, and it's time we get over them and quit judging people or nations by their worst mistakes. Finally, focusing on the negative. This one is true. The French people do start with the cons when making a pros and cons list, and they include every con, no matter how unlikely or insignificant. But have you stopped to wonder why? You either have learned or will learn about the French school system, and one of the things you learn is that grading isn't meant to point out what you did good, but point out what you did wrong. French students aren't encouraged to do better, they're guilted into it. Because of this, the French believe that you have to point out everything others did wrong to prove that you are smart, and the French are terrified of looking stupid. The French people are also pessimists and believe optimists are naive and stupid. They believe focusing on the best is dangerous because you could be unprepared when the worst happens. Knowing this, it is important to understand one of the nuances of the French language. When French people say phrases like pas mauvais or not bad, they are actually giving a very high compliment. Not bad means very good. It's also important to keep in mind that different nations and cultures have different traditions and values, different manners. In France, if a woman refuses help from a man, like the man holds the door open or helps the woman put on her jacket, the woman is being incredibly rude. A woman refusing help is common in America, but rude in France. The same concept is what's happening with the French's negative thinking. And beyond that, treating people based on stereotypes is just plain hurtful and damaging. Just don't do it.